hello to everyone and welcome to the fourth in a series of HE Innovate webinars. Today we have a panel discussion on assessing skills and exams in uncertain times, challenges and opportunities. My name is Rebecca Allenson and I work for Technopolis as part of the HE Innovate team with Julia Jaworka, and I'll be your moderator for this session. Just for those who have just joined us, you have a poll up just in the centre of your screen, and we'd be really delighted if you could fill that in. Just to say a few words about HE Innovate, it's an initiative of the European Commission and the OECD, helping higher education institutions explore their innovative potential. And if you're not a subscriber to the HE Innovate news, please do sign up. Before introducing today's panel, I've got a few housekeeping issues to cover. First is that today's webinar is being recorded, and we're using the meeting functions of Zoom today rather than the webinar. This is to give you all an opportunity after the panel session to engage with other participants in small working groups. Therefore, what we're doing is muting everyone for the main plenary to keep the background noise to a minimum, and then we'll explain what will happen for the breakout groups later. Even though we've muted you, we welcome your questions and comments, and there's a comment section on the right of your screen, so please feel free to add comments and questions at any time. And if you have a particular panelists in mind, just write their name in with that. You can also raise questions and discuss them during your breakout rooms. And finally, we hope there'll be no technical issues, but if they occur, we'll work in real time to fix them and to ensure a smooth webinar. So for those who joined a bit late, just to say that we have a poll that's up and we'd be delighted if you could fill that in. So today we have three panelists who are going to discuss their experiences with us, and I'll introduce you to them right now. First, we're delighted to have Katerina Pramatari, an Associate Professor at the Department of Management Science and Technology of the Athens University of Economics and Business. Katerina is a founding partner at Unifund, a Greek VC that invests in startups and spin-offs. She is also a key founder of ASIN, a leading university accelerator that's been awarded for bridging the corporate world with university startups. She has extensive entrepreneurial experience herself, and over the last years, she has supported more than 200 teams in the setup of their own ventures and has been among the initiators and supporters of various activities fostering youth entrepreneurship. We also have Istvan Kovacs, a higher education expert who's been active for many years in the HE Innovate Expert Network. Istvan's area of expertise is learning and teaching, innovation and entrepreneurship, and internationalization. His university, the Budapest Metropolitan University of Applied Sciences, has a special reputation due to its innovation in education called My Brand. They could shift to online education in just 24 hours. Finally, we have Barbara Gabriel. Barbara is a former owner of a technological company with experience in working with a multinational telecommunications operator and has been teaching in higher education institutions since 1999. Having been responsible for STEM, innovation and entrepreneurship courses throughout her career, she considers the combination of these areas as the key to capitalize student skills and competencies towards the labour market. Currently, Barbara coordinates an Erasmus Plus European project grounded in HE Innovate and works on a number of other projects focused in entrepreneurship training programs for higher education teachers. Since July 2019, she's Deputy Director for Internationalization and Cooperation of the Faculty of Mechanical Engineering of the University of Aveiro. And Barbara wrote in the biography she sent to us that since she was young, her passion to be better every day commands her life both personally and also professionally. So before we start the panel discussion, we can close the poll. Oh, and it's quite even, but I think this poll, perhaps the panelists can reflect on the answers. So we have more for assessment of skills and acquired skills and competences. So welcome, Katerina, Istvan and Barbara. It's very nice to have you here today. And I know that all of you have seen this switch to online learning in recent months and what a pace of change this has been. And perhaps one of the biggest challenges is related to how we do assessments and exams online. So not only do universities are tackling this, but at the same time, students are already stressed by the closure of campuses and the complete change in education formats overall. So I've got two questions for all of you to start the discussion. And let's start with question number one, and to Katerina. Can you highlight the key challenges you have had to overcome to ensure the quality of assessments of student skills and knowledge? Katerina.
Thank you, Rebecca. I hope you can hear me. Thank you also for inviting me to this panel. I think it's been very interesting times, I have to admit. And regarding the assessment situation, I will start with the following. For me, this semester, I was running one specific course, undergraduate course. I ran it for several years in the same department. And it was the first time my students had performed so well. So the level of learning and the skills acquired were higher than ever before. And I was trying to assess why this has happened and why do I say so. And it has happened, I think it has to do with the following. First, they had a lot of time, especially in the beginning, to devote to the course exercise, and they had to develop innovative e-business idea and do very interesting group work. So they were engaged and they had a lot of time. But I think what was really has played a critical role was the fact that in order to keep the communication with them, because of the need for me to communicate with them and keep them engaged, for the first time, I established a process where they had to report on their progress 3 times during the semester. So we had 3 sessions during which they had to present their group work. This was happening for the first time. I had, of course, in the past, been doing that with physical presentations, but it was twice in the semester. And this time, because it was all over the internet, they had to do it 3 and 4 times. So they had to report on their progress. So they had to be exposed much more than before. This made them invest a lot more and devote a lot more effort to the group work they had. Of course, I had the challenge of assessing how their learning process was going. And in order to overcome it, I came up with more sessions, which ended up in better results for the course overall. At the same time, it has been very difficult, and I still face this challenge, how to evaluate the individual contribution of each team member in a group work. Now, this is now, in order to overcome this challenge, there will be also exams. So individual exams paired with group work will be the final assessment of the for the course. But for the individual exams, plagiarism would have been an issue. In order to overcome that, open-ended questions, I hope you can hear me, open-ended questions and critical thinking will be the main way to assess what they've learned through the class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much, Katerina, for that. I mean, over to Istvan now. I think there's a really important questions around this ongoing assessment. But could Istvan, could you come in about how you're overcoming the challenges of assessment and what you think about the quality of the skills and knowledge that are being acquired?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. I would share with you a slide that shows the main dilemma in organizing the assessment in 2 different ways. One way is when the assessments are focused at the end of the learning process, and it's judgmental and validates the acquired skills, competencies, but mainly in the traditional forms, in tests or even in oral exams, mostly a feedback on what the students remember and understand from the learning process. The other kind of feedback mechanism and also assessment approach when the assessment is inbuilt in the process, when frequent interaction between the students and the lecturer provides an ongoing view on for the teacher how students progress. Therefore, this approach, which is much more guiding and helping improvement, in the same time provides a great release or relief for the lecturers in the examination period, because they already know what students know. So therefore, using the digital period, many new online assessment and feedback mechanisms could be tried and developed. So therefore, this was a very inspiring challenge for everybody, depending on, and that's the crucial, the other crucial question. Let me show you my another slide, and then I won't bother you with further ones, at least for this turn. Some teachers simply translated their classical learning process into a digital one. So they try to do everything simply across the online space. And for them, it is a very critical situation now, because they have to respond many questions, many concerns regarding the validity of the online examination, for example. And therefore it's a big challenge in which we are now facing the high time of this new learning exercise for the teachers.
Okay, thank you, István. Over to you, Barbara. I know that you also come from an engineering faculty with practical issues to deal with. So could you give us an idea of some of your challenges?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you for your previous words in the short description. Good afternoon, all. And thank you also for this great opportunity to debate and share with you our experience and my experience. We are first living in our lives, for sure, a challenge that is the same for all of us in the world. And this is, at the same time, it's beautiful. At the same time, it's very strange, this period we are living. In the case of our university, we took 1 week to switch the more or less 150 courses, bachelor's, master degrees, and involving 15,000 students to the emergency distance learning. It's not, unfortunately, a typical distance learning format. It's an emergency one, and we can't forget that, and we don't forget that. In the case of our faculty, the Department of Mechanical Engineering, we have around 900 students and more or less 80 researchers, 40 teachers, technicians, laboratories. So it's been a challenge, which is natural, but at the same time, it's a great opportunity for learn. And I would summarize and align with Katerina what mentioned, and also István, summarizing 5 main topics and key challenges that we faced prior to ensure, to ensure the quality of the assessment, to provide the best assessment to students. First of all, the legal part of the process. Our university rectory needed to legally validate all the change of procedures, the public defense procedures of master thesis and PhD, also to change the working plans, and particularly, as you mentioned, Rebecca, we are from engineering, so we have a lot of disciplines in laboratories with a heavy part of experimental parts. So we need to validate legally the possibility to change to distance learning format. And after that, it was very quick, but it was a challenge that we needed to overcome. It's related to what István mentioned, the different methodologies. We needed to adapt the methodologies in the presential mode and to adapt, to optimize these methods to a totally different format of the emergency distance learning. It was one of the other key challenges, and of course, contextualized to each discipline and each profile of teacher, because we need to address also this. In this system and equation. Related to that, it was one of our challenges also, the new tools, or how to use at the maximum features they have of the new tools, the Moodle that we already were using, but to use them at the maximum, to use the functionalities they provide, accessing students, the formative and summative types of assessment, and also the evaluation. And in this part, it was crucial, the support of our rectory. They implemented and promoted a set of intensive training and workshops, not only to learn, to work in a better way and optimize all the potentiality of the new tools, Zooms, Microsoft Teams, and Moodle, and WebEx, and all others, but also to offer in the best way, the best methodologies for distance learning in our cases. So it was very crucial, this part from our rectory. And related to this, I think it's important to reinforce here, due to this exceptional situation, the uncertainty that we are living, and we built a survey to students to understand their concerns specifically regarding assessment of skills. And it was very interesting, the number of the feedback we had. 40% of the students, they share with us their concerns far beyond the technical limitations. And also it's a pillar for our faculty and for our university, the proximity. The physical distance is a reality, unfortunately, and so we need to deepen the proximity sense among colleagues and with students. And our dean conducted in our rectory that with general meetings to share our experiences, to learn from each other, and it was one of the ways to optimize what Istvan mentioned, and also to reinforce what Katerina said about communication. And I will finalize with this. Distance imposition clearly asks for proximity, and I think it's the best way to overcome this type of challenges.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Barbara. And you're right around the communication and ensuring that this exchange of good practice happens. You also mentioned about the contextualizing for teachers. And I have the next question, it also brings in the issue of students. And I'm going to go back to Katerina. And so based on your experience, what are the key benefits as well as the constraints for students and teachers and what they've had to face during the exam period?
Actually, it's now the exam period. For us, it's just starting next week. And we are in a interesting situation because in Greece, we have just started now. We have just been out slowly from the lockdown. So, for example, the schools, the elementary schools opened this week, the shops over the last month. And the whole sentiment in the country is that we are getting out of the lockdown period. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned that because we were waiting for this week before issuing our exams program. So last week, the students and the faculty members, we didn't know when the exams will start and the format that we would follow. Mm-hmm. So it was just on Monday, actually on Tuesday this week, that the program was announced. And that created a lot of insecurity to all of us. And I was very surprised, and I will say to some degree disappointed to see that the majority of the faculty members, the majority of the classes will be, or the final exams will take place in the physical traditional mode. So I mentioned that because that wouldn't have been possible 2-3 weeks ago, but because we are out beyond, let's say, the lockdown period, the majority of the faculty members on Monday decided to carry on the exams in the old traditional way. Mm-hmm. The reason I say I'm disappointed a bit about that is because I think that we lose in that way some very important benefits I could see if we would take, let's say, the digital exams. Actually, in my class, for my course, I decided to go online for the exams, despite the fact I had the possibility to go with the traditional physical mode. The benefits I see for the online exam has to do with, it doesn't, well, okay, flexibility is something, and the fact that people can take the exams from wherever they are. But for me, the benefit I could see was that I can, in this way, assess different competencies, assess, let's say, in many different ways, the final outcome of the class. As I said before, the students had already been assessed through 4 sessions, online sessions, through presentations for what they've done during the semester. On top of that, with the online exam, I have the possibility to assess different elements of their learning process and competencies individually for each one of them. While that was, I was partly doing that offline, but with the offline exam, I think the risk of plagiarism for me is bigger with the offline exam than the online. So I would, let's say, if I would like to end with a key message, for me, the key message would be that this COVID period has shown us all and has taught us many new ways we can perform our work in a better way than before. At least that has happened for my course. And I would like us not to forget what we've learned during this period and to blend it with what was very good before and achieve the best of the results.
I think that's...
While the physical contact with the students is really important for the learning process, I don't think it's necessary for the exams.
That's a very, very important message to end on there, I think, Katerina, in relation to, you know, perhaps some universities will revert to type. So if I can hand over to Istvan around your thoughts on the key benefits and constraints that students and teachers have faced during the exam period.
Thank you. So the benefits are obvious. It was such a strong inspiration and driver to change new things and leave the comfort zone that helped us avoid these kind of challenges. So trying new things generated a huge interest among teachers. We had in my university online exchange of good practices, and 70 80 lecturers took part in it, and everybody was really keen on learning new things in a much more intensive way than in previous times. But it's also beneficial and increases the cohesion of the universities, that there are common problems that we have to solve. Katerina mentioned the plagiarism, but also the identification of the students across tests and other kind of oral examinations in large cohorts. It can be difficult. How we can exclude, for example, in closing exams, which has great stakes. So it's important to know that students solve or respond to questions alone. So how can we exclude the external help, and how we can take into account from the other hand, the difficulties that students face, because they always have to face a very special, unique situation when sometimes they have no appropriate broadband access, sometimes they have to share their computer with their family members, and so on. So to apply a proper level of equity sensitivity is also important. And there is also another group of issues which I categorize into the impossible term, under the impossible term, because there are study programs in higher education which would need the physical presence. For example, the dancing in group in an art school, or the dentist education, when they have to prove that they can really manage a certain treatment exercise. So it's really important to know the limitation of the digital solutions. And some practical advices come from the Irish Teaching and Learning Forum portal that I found extremely useful advices. Let me show you these. The first thing is that simply the new assessment process needs help for students technically as well, sometimes. The other is that trying the new assessment modes, if the stake is high in an examination, that previously without grading is important to practice. The next one is that we have to take into account the differences in access and also with in skills. So therefore, the grading should take into account the entire spring difficulties, because we had a long process with tremendous challenges. And the last group of issues that I'd like to emphasize is the academic integrity issue that tries to save the validity of the assessment, because we need to stand for the professional expectations of, in our scientific or vocational area. So therefore, technologies are needed to be developed in this kind of online environment, where when tight timing, the combination of external knowledge and personal reflections, the large test banks with the randomization opportunity, or plugin softwares were also mentioned, or the installation of the technical environment in which, for example, a closing examination is organized, showing the space that there is nobody in the room. So these are very difficult things. So if we avoid the great benefit of formative assessment, then we have to solve many, many complex problems.
Okay, thank you very much. And yeah, just to say that we will have the Irish talking in 2 weeks at our next webinar as well. So Barbara, over to you. And there are also a couple of questions that we've had for you in the comments that you might want to tie in, otherwise you can answer them later. The first one relates to the student survey that you conducted, so that students could share their concerns. It does fit very much with this topic. And what was the outcome of that, and when did you do that? Was it at the beginning of the crisis? And the second question is, you mentioned your institution uses Moodle to assess the students. But you might want to take that one afterwards. We can come back to it. But if you could just say a few words about the constraints and the key benefits that you've seen for students and teachers.
Yes, I will try to include what our colleagues Marika and Claudia wrote in the chat. I'm totally aligned with the concerns that what Catarina shared with us, and also Istvan. In our case, in Portugal, and particularly in the University of Aveiro, and in my faculty, but in the overall university, we'll conduct all the assessment and all the exam period online. Only just a few disciplines, very specific, will be conducted in a presential mode. In our case, we'll do it everything, including the initial experimental laboratories online by simulators and other methods. But I would like, because I try to at least be optimist even in this scenario, I would like to emphasize the biggest benefit, not only the exam period. We are learning, we are growing. We are learning new methods, new ways of evaluating, new ways to capitalize the capacity of students. And this is a big opportunity. We are growing, we are better communicating, of course, virtually, unfortunately, but we need to communicate even better, as Catarina mentioned in the previous question. And for me, this is a very big benefit from this so strange situation. And since we are doing our assessment and evaluation formats and methods online, of course, this implies to consider new ways of evaluating and consider what are the constraints and challenges regarding this type of distance learning in emergency situation. And I will link that with the survey and what Marika asked. We conducted the survey more or less around the Easter season, because we had the lockdown in Portugal, if I'm not wrong, in the 12th of March. Then we waited to understand the position, to understand the impact to students and for all also. So we conducted the survey in the Easter period. And it was very interesting, and I will use some of the outcomes from the students just to answer and to reinforce the two constraints I think I would like to emphasize. The fairness of this type of format of distance learning. Is it fair to access students using distance learning? It was one of the most common concerns. They were all related to assessment and evaluation, besides the mental health conditions and the effectiveness. Is it proper to assess students and the competencies in that traditional way nowadays in this format? Can we access in a proper way the effort of students studying in a new format for them in so different conditions, sometimes so difficult at home, as I'm living here at home, and I see with my kids in high school and manage that, so I understand the failure due to technical constraints during an exam, a written virtual exam. And these constraints leads to what Istvan mentioned, and also Katarina, that for me are very important to talk and to think. The necessity or the need to rebuild the academic trust between colleagues, because we are learning from each other and other colleagues. It's one of the things, this sense of community, because we communicate even more with our faculties, with other higher education institutions. And so it's very important to rebuild this academic trust that we are doing our best to optimize the formats of evaluation, trying to deliver the best way the knowledge. For me, it's the outcome, one of the most important outcome. And related to that, it's the academic honesty. And we are talking about fraud and plagiarism. We need to rebuild that, or to remember that this is always fundamental, because in the presential mode, we have already students that commits fraud and plagiarism. But now it's even a bigger challenge. But we need to remember that. And this we can obtain, it takes time, but we can obtain with a good communication and with proximity. And because I'm trying to be an optimist, I would say that we have great opportunities and benefits having the distance learning format. First of all, we can test the approaches we are testing and we are doing and trying to improve the new methodologies we are improving. The automatic proof, this is a consequence of e-learning, automatic proof of submission, and hopefully it's more quicker to obtain a feedback. And the feedback in assessment is very important for the student to improve and to increase the performance during the academic journey. So I think it's an added value and a benefit. Another one, that they are comfortable at their own space and at their own pace. And I see that with my high school daughter, because in some disciplines she prefers to stay at home with her own flexible schedules, and she's more comfortable. And I feel that also with some students. The anxiety, probably it will be at the first time very higher, but probably it will be reduced with this format. The reduction of use of paper, of the traditional assessments, of course, it's an evidence, and I think it's a benefit also. So we are talking about speed and accuracy using these methods. And finally, I would like to reinforce for teachers, we are producing new content, at least new content regarding new pedagogical formats, new content, videos, audios that students can use during the exam period and replay and see again and have doubts to ask to teachers. So I think it's an added value. And I would like to say just one more thing. Probably we are opening our higher education institutions to students that didn't have the availability to have attendance physically in higher education. And with this format, they can. Even the invited speakers that we would like to invite, and they are very far away, now they can. And I think we are open to this opportunity.
That's a very interesting point there, Barbara, because in the comments, there's also a question around social inequality in access to internet and digital tools. And of course, you've shown the other side of actual equality associated with giving widening access to students. I wonder if I could just move to Katarina. And there's a question in the chat for you around, could you give an example about plagiarism being less of a problem in online exam than in the offline situation?
Yes, okay. Yes, I saw the question and I really liked it. I can easily say the following. If we were to do exactly the same exam with exactly the same topics, online and offline, I think plagiarism would be probably an issue, also online as well. But I have to, let me give a specific example. In our university, we had the issues with plagiarism with offline exams because students had found a way through Facebook to share the topics, someone else being out there and giving examples to all that would participate in a group in Facebook. This shouldn't have happened. We have people monitoring the exam. Usually they are PhD students who do so, but they are not policemen or policewomen. So students would find their way in the offline environment to use digital media and Facebook, etc., and share results and answers. In the online environment, I know they have much more access to the online environment, but we have also many more means to, as István said before, use many other topics. So not just have the same questions for everyone. So we can use random questions that makes it a lot more difficult. We can be much more flexible in how much time we give to answer each question. And we can give the questions, not all of them at once in the beginning, but much more dynamically. We can use the surprise element in the exam. And that can also make it much more difficult for students to assess. And maybe one of the most important elements for me, we can use many, many different pieces of information for the final assessment. So for example, now I have who were the students that attended each single session of the class, who was presenting, who was asking questions, out of a group exercise, how did they participate? And I could keep all this information during the session, which usually during the physical delivery, this information is lost. So I don't know if I covered the question, but I think if in the future I'm thinking what to keep and what to leave aside, definitely what I really miss from the online delivery of the class is the physical establishment of trust and communication with the students. Mm-hmm. I was very fortunate because we had the lockdown after 4 or 5 sessions. So I had already managed to build trust and communication with my students before moving online. So that was perfect. And the only thing I missed during this semester was the final session with the students. I wanted to see them once again in the eyes, give them very constructive feedback, and pass, let's say, the enthusiasm I had after seeing the very good work they perform. This is very difficult to communicate online through the screen. Mm-hmm. But the rest and the exams, I really enjoy that they can be delivered online.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you very much for that. And we're going to launch another poll now. I mean, I was just wondering if I could just go back whilst we're doing that just briefly to István, because we're then running out of time, and we certainly want to give people an opportunity to spend some time talking together in their breakout groups. So the poll that's come up is, in what cases do you think exams can be considered unnecessary? So it'd be great if you could fill that in. And István, I wondered if you had some more comments related to, I think this is important, around the assessments and how these assessment and feedback mechanisms and the ones that take place during the courses, how they support the learning process and provide feedback.
Yes, I think what is a very special opportunity during this online or remote education, that we could rethink the entire learning process. So today we are speaking about assessment, but assessment is very closely interrelated with the things that are, or activities that are organized during the learning process. So in a learner and learning centered teaching or environment or learning environment, it is always a case that each and every class is different. So therefore many things can be reconsidered during the process according to the feedback of students. Therefore it's rather a co-creation process and not a simply one direction delivery of mostly explicit knowledge. So therefore this situation was similar for everybody to the challenge of a learning-centered, adaptive learning process. And somebody asked what kind of workload relates to this kind of adaptive co-creation process, and it's a huge work. So you cannot use ready patterns all the slides and all the technologies. You have to redesign everything. So it's questions the entire educational capacity, distribution, payment, recognition of the work. And for this spring, everybody was forgiving with the imbalance of the investment, personal costs and exhaust, because everybody felt, or most of the teachers of higher education felt that it's a great discovery in the same time, and that a joint crisis management, that we all have to work together, learn from each other, and absorb new things. Mm-hmm. And what I think is still important, that I'd like to show you my last slide, and it's about the great variety of the possible assignments that are also inspiring for the lecturers as well. So it's not only interesting for the students, but also for the lecturers. Of course, small essays or writings are traditionally in place in higher education, but there are so many great things, asking students to prepare a video report, or an audio recorded presentation, or inviting them in case competitions when they solve a problem in groups, or they do a micro research leading to a micro publication. They can create their own portfolio, documenting the results of their work. And then what is a great benefit in capacity management, that we can share and delegate many of the assessment tasks to our students. So self-assessment can be part of the learning process. Mm-hmm. Peer assessment can be part of the learning process. These all feed the drivers and energies of the education process. So it's a very rich opportunity. It's a world of opportunities, and this discovery has been started, and most management bodies of the universities are now considering to what extent we can continue the good practices, and also the curiosity how we could organize our work in a different way with the stronger partnership of our students.
Yeah, thank you, Istvan. I think that chimes very well with the poll which is about to end. In you know, it's the hybrid, but the importance of receiving feedback and looking at different ways of assessing the students is clearly very important now within higher education. We're going to move on to our breakout groups now, but first of all, can I thank all of our panelists for your insights into what we're tackling right now. We've come to this breakout sessions, and what I'm going to do is first explain what's going to happen. So you'll be assigned to a breakout room automatically, and you'll be prompted on your screen to join the breakout room. So please do click on that button to join. And when you're in the room, you can speak on audio, see yourselves, and share chat as normal with your group. And you can also alert the host if you have any issues. And we'll bring you back after around 10 minutes where you'll see a message, and you'll be returned after 60 seconds if you don't click on anything. Otherwise, you can click and come straight back in. So we've got a couple of questions for you to reflect on in the breakout rooms, but I think there's also quite a lot that you can reflect on from the questions already and from the polls. The first one is, what are the opportunities that can be built on to further improve the assessment methods and tools in the future? And then the other one is, considering the possibility of a blended learning format in the next academic year, what would you keep from the current distance learning assessment methods and evaluation? And I think that one fits very well with what Katerina is saying about perhaps when you might just slide back into the way that we've always done it. So when we bring you back, we'll be happy if some of you are prepared to summarize your discussion and also to pose any final questions. So over to you now, Zsuzsa, for you to assign people to the breakout rooms. Well, welcome back to everyone to the main plenary, and I'm sorry if we closed down your interesting conversations halfway through. I hope you had a good discussion and also made some new friends. Before I wrap up, are there any volunteers who would like to raise a virtual hand to say a few words about their discussion to us? There are no virtual hands. I'm going to invite our panelists to say a few final words in relation to their discussions and also on the feedback and the questions that we've had in the comments. So maybe I could start with Katerina. Can I hand over to Katerina to say a few final words, a wrap up from you, Katerina?
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. I think because I'm a very optimistic person and I like to keep the good things out of each situation, I think this COVID situation has had also very positive elements. One of the elements I really like this period has been the need for innovation and creativity by all of us. And because we had to learn so many things and act in so many new ways. And especially for the assessment domain, I think we're just in the beginning. And we can feel, I think it's very nice on his slides, how many new opportunities we have to be much more creative. Mm-hmm. I will stress again, I was really disappointed to see yesterday the program of the exams issued by my university, seeing how much, to what extent it was back to the old times. I don't want to see that coming back. I want us to keep the innovation spirit and the creativity of this period. So I will still support that, and I hope this will happen for all of us.
Okay.
I don't know if I understood well the question, but aligned with what Katerina mentioned and what we were talking in the breakout room about the opportunities. We have the right moment to test all these methodologies and new formats and to optimize them, of course. And as Katerina said, and I fully agree, we need to be creative and innovative. And besides that, other competencies that the labor market was already asking for the professionals, the recent professionals from the universities. And we needed to be in this period, the adaptability and the communication, to deepening the communication. So I think this is a crucial and good moment to enhance those needs.
Perfect. And Istvan, are there some final thoughts from your side?
Thank you. One thing that I'd like to highlight coming out from our breakout section, that we are in a process when tremendous number of developmental challenges are in front of us. And one of the least developed technologies of the universities are the assessment techniques. So making the assessment forms more colorful, more inspiring, much more supporting learning as simply taking judgmental decisions. These things are professionally challenging, and we need dedicated developmental capacities and also inter-university networks to jointly develop these kind of things, because it's a waste of energy to let each and every individual lecturers to work on his or her own assessment tools. So I think the main message is that we could identify many developmental challenges that we have to work together on in the future, and I think this is a great message, and probably students are happy to with this conclusion.
Perfect. To be experimented on.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you ever so much, and I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today's webinar. It's been an absolute pleasure to host this panel and to hear about their experiences and some of the solutions. So can I thank Barbara, Katerina and Istvan for their insights and their participation. It seems there's no one solution to any of these challenges, but innovation, as you've said, entrepreneurship, the speed of change is remarkable, and this should be transformatory for the future. I'd also like to thank the audience for their participation and for the discussions they had and for providing feedback and questions for the panelists. If you would like us to pass on any other questions to the panelists, please send them to info@heinnovate.eu. And if you have any additional questions or would like to connect directly to the HE Innovate team, you can contact us through the website or reach us on Twitter and LinkedIn. In addition, we will take away the key points from the discussion and make it available in a short article on the website. Our next webinar will be on the 18th of June at 5 p.m. CET on the topic of policy approaches to digital transformation and institutional responses. And more information will be made available on HE Innovate early next week. So on behalf of the HE Innovate team, we'd like to thank you once again for your time, and we look forward to seeing you all again, and have a wonderful rest of the day. Goodbye all.